Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the August 2022 Argo CD and Rollouts community meeting. I'm your host for today, Jesse. I'm a maintainer of the Argo project, and today we have two topics. I believe one is some security updates on Argo CD, and the second will be Argo Rollouts 1.3 release that is imminent. Just a reminder that the Argo product adheres to the CNCF Code of Conduct, and so please be courteous and respectful during this meeting. And this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. Finally, if you have any agenda items, issues, or discussion topics, please feel free to add it to the Google Doc. So I guess we'll start with the Argo CD security updates, and I think Leah will be talking to that.
I've got that one actually.
Oh, okay. Michael.
Let's see. Let me share, made some slides. So a lot of security stuff has happened since 2.4 was released, and actually even before that a little bit. So just want to talk about some of the most exciting stuff that's happened. Let's see. Before talking about 2.5, I want to look at some work we've done resolving some CVEs. This is statistics counting stuff that's happened since 2.4 was released. And that 6 number is mostly stuff that came from the Ada Logics audit of all 4 Argo projects that was funded by OSTIF and sort of facilitated by CNCF. So we found resolved 6 CVEs. One of them was pretty serious, a 9.0 CVSS. It took us typically about 45 days to resolve these. And I don't know if that sounds like a long time for folks or a short time. For me, I'm pretty happy with that because we've built a lot of quality control process into making sure that like the patches are available to vendors when they need to be, and we communicate the patches well. The maximum was 70 days. That was for one that was a lower severity, and we let it go a little bit longer. So I like these numbers. It's well within the like 90-day cutoff that I think security researchers typically use to make sure that, people are actually responding to reports. So new stuff for 2.5. The first one isn't really a feature like in the software. It's just making things more visible. So our policy about keeping up to date with dependencies and making sure that we aren't shipping things with CVEs has been, we don't release anything that includes CVEs of high or critical severity as evaluated by Snyk. We've done a good job with this in the most recent release and with particularly Golang and JavaScript dependencies. But we're trying to get to 100% compliance when it comes to images as well that we ship, like HA proxy, Dex, Redis. We want to make sure that those images, as they're referenced in our default like customized manifests, are up to date and don't have any critical or high vulnerabilities. So it used to be we had to maintain all of this information in Snyk's web UI. And every time we updated Redis, we'd have to go in and manually change which Redis image we're scanning. So now all of that is automatically updated and written to our external facing documentation. So that not only we have a place to look at a quick summary of where all of our releases are, but the community does, and they can point out if we've missed something. So that's available right now in the latest docs. If you just pull up ReadTheDocs, click this drop down and choose the latest, and go to operator manual security Snyk Scans, you can see this page. And each of these links goes to like the full Snyk report for that particular dependency or set of dependencies. So love that one. A couple of community contributed fixes or improvements were 34 Fathom Below, where Justin improved our network policies for some of the newer components of Argo CD, like application set and the notifications controller. That stuff that was all, we locked down the network restrictions on everything else a while back, and these just needed to be caught up after we integrated application set and network controller. So super helpful stuff there. That's useful to avoid, like if someone does compromise one Argo CD component, they can't move around easily among Argo CD components. Next thing is pod security standard restricted. I'm not actually super familiar with the pod security standard. I believe it's something that's published by Kubernetes. And there's a tool with the Kyverno CLI, I believe, that can validate that your manifests adhere to that standard. Joe Baubier made sure that our manifests were compatible with PSS restricted. And I just listed the things that actually ended up changing in our manifests. So really appreciate Joe's time working on that. So that's manifests. Now we get into the actual Argo CD code. We've been kind of haunted by symlinks over the past few months. The repo server holds Git repository contents from, somewhat trusted, but not necessarily 100% trusted users. And recently, with a lot of people using Argo CD in a multi-tenant fashion, we want to make sure that tenants aren't able to poke around the repo server and see other tenants' stuff. And symlinks have been one way that might have been possible. So we've sort of batted these down as we've noticed different features allowing symlinks. And finally, Not From State Farm, aka Jake, contributed a fix that just completely disallows out-of-bounds symlinks in any repository that you're going to use in Argo CD. It's possible to disable that if you really need a symlink that points somewhere outside of your repo root, but you really shouldn't do that. Just trust the check. Another enhancement this provided is previously, we made sure that the eventual destination of the symlink was not outside of your repo root. Now we make sure that your symlink never leaves the repo root. So you can't like go ... and then navigate back in, proving or allowing yourself to discover that a bunch of directories actually exist. We say you're not allowed to look anywhere outside the repo root. Another one contributed by Jake is enabling TLS on our bundled DEX instance by default. This is something several people had asked for, and Jake just had some time and whipped up the solution real quick. It's not 100% perfect. We still have to disable cert validation because we're using a self-signed cert on DEX, but at least things are encrypted, and that's a huge step forward. We also now have the ability to let you build your own certificate, enable certificate validation, so then you have a completely trusted connection with DEX. And you can still disable it if for some reason it's important to not have TLS enabled between DEX and the Argo CD API server. A second thanks to Jake, and I should point out that he's employed by Cobalt, and he told me that Cobalt does not differentiate between working on internal products and working on open source software that they use. So he's had a bunch of time to work on this stuff, and I think that's a really awesome way for Cobalt to treat their open source software. And then final enhancement, I'm really excited about this because it solves a problem I've been thinking a lot about lately, which is trying to protect namespaces from applications doing bad things in a really sensitive namespace. For example, the Argo CD namespace, the Cube System namespace, those are places that you might want to set up a project to allow users to deploy applications to several places, but be very explicit, they cannot deploy to these places. Blake Pedersen contributed that fix and was really patient through a lot of iteration, trying to figure out the best way to implement that. The way it works now is if you specify anywhere in your destination rules, you have an exclamation point and then a string, which is a glob pattern. If any rule matches something with a deny exclamation mark at the beginning, you're not allowed to deploy to that destination. And you still have to match at least one other allow rule. So I'm really excited about that one, and I hope people will roll it out, particularly with their default projects. If you leave your default project sitting around, this is a great way to make sure that it can't touch really sensitive stuff. So that's the 5 new things. I hope we've got a little bit of time if people want to ask questions about anything that I've talked about. And yeah, just huge thanks to the community. And there are a bunch of people like core contributors who worked on fixing the CVEs that I didn't think explicitly, but you know who you are, and that was a lot of work. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Michael. Are all of these available in 2.4.8 and above?
So all the CVE fixes are in 2.4 some, wherever they were released in that series.
Yeah.
The remaining features, so the Snyk scans are visible now in the latest docs. The rest of these will wait for 2.5 because they're big enough changes. We want to make sure we don't do that on a patch release.
Oh, I see. Okay, so these are upcoming changes.
Yeah, these are
Okay.
more enhancements than fixes, I would say. So they're going to
Thank
wait
you.
for the next release.
Thanks, Michael. Any other questions for Michael? All right. So next agenda topic was about the Argo Rollouts 1.3 release that we're working on releasing very soon. We already have a RC1 for that, so these things are ready to be tested out. And I think that is it Zach?
Be me. Yep.
Yeah. Right.
I see my share. So like Jesse said, we released the RC about 5 days ago for 1.3 of Argo rollouts. Just some quick kind of overviews. There was 13 new features, 16 bug fixes, and 18 chores. We had 22 contributors, 11 of which were new or doing their first commit. Just gonna kind of go over some of the top 4 bigger features. One being ITIO traffic mirroring. Basically, what that allows you to do is you basically can have a step in your workflow that will turn on traffic mirroring to the canary at some percentage. It's kind of a nice feature. It allows you to basically test out your canary without affecting the end users at all, because when it mirrors traffic, it doesn't care about the responses. There's some nice benefits about that. It makes easier to compare production traffic error rates and the canary error rates and things like that. It allows the analysis queries to also become more stable because traffic patterns are similar. And if you have like a low traffic service, that mirroring is going to keep those percentages a little bit closer together. It supports a whole bunch of filtering support, so you can filter based off method, path, headers, both the exact prefix, regular expressions. You can have a list of these match conditions to be able to filter out like read-only traffic, so you only mirror read-only traffic, so you don't modify data twice and things like that. That was kind of one of the major features. I worked on that. We also added ITIO header-based routing. Basically the same idea of mirroring, but lets you send traffic to the canary based on particular header matches. Some kind of common use cases of this is, sending a particular subset of your users to your canary traffic that, on the server you set some header, and then, you can basically target subsets to your canary deployment. You can also, as a developer, have a special header that you set so you can do some spot checking within your canary real easily. It supports kind of the same idea. You can have basically what header you want to match, whether it's an exact match, a prefix match, or a regular expression match within the header value. So that's kind of a nice feature as well. That was worked on by Andre Persinko. We also added Philip added traffic support as a router, as a traffic router. It's pretty easy to use. You just basically need to create the traffic service and then specify the traffic service resource in your rollout object. So that's nice to have. the last one that we'll talk about here is InfluxDB is now an officially or is now a supported metrics provider. JMed contributed this. It basically allows analysis templates to query InfluxDB. Kind of here's an example here, the new portions of the analysis template that allow you to query InfluxDB. And that is it. Any questions related to any of that? Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Zach, for that update.
Yep.
So those were the two items we had on our agenda. I'm gonna check one last time to see if there was any other things brought forward on this. I don't see anything, but does anyone else have any other topics they want to bring up for this meeting? Okay, I don't see anything, but if there are Argo CD or rollout specific technical discussions, that Thursday contributors meeting happens tomorrow at 8:15 a.m. Pacific, and then the workflows happens bi-weekly on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Other than that, I think that's a wrap for today, and we'll see you tomorrow at the contributors meeting or next month on the community meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.